Welcome to the final session of today's workshop. It's titled ESG Disclosures and Their Impact on Industrial Emissions and Sustainable Finance. Our speaker is Mr. Kundan Pandey, Senior Editor at Mongabay-India. The session will be moderated by Ms. Shreya Raman, Resident Fellow, Climate Change Media Hub, ACJ. I invite them both to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Before we start, I would like to say a little bit about ESG. I'm not a business journalist, but the only context in which I have encountered ESG in my reporting was when I was looking at the story around Assam Solar Project and its cancellation. So last year, this solar project that was being funded by ADB pulled out its funding because the community members there went and approached the ADB and said that it has not followed, the project has not followed the bank's ESG framework. ESG framework, many multi-development banks have this in their protocols and environment and social responsibility frameworks. So that was the reason why ADB pulled out of the funding. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because so many of the sessions when we talk about finance and economics around climate change, what we have to remember is the reason why we are in this situation in climate change is because of this the kind of profit-making system that we've had since Industrial Revolution, right? And when it comes to finding ways to deal with this, it is also important to hold companies accountable, and also how do we do that, right? So for me, ESG has become an important framework to hold companies accountable and to ensure that whatever we are doing doesn't create more harm to the world and the ecology and the people who are living in it. So with that, I would just like to introduce Kundan sir. Yeah, it's a long list of achievements that he has, so I had to write it down. Kundan Pandey is an award-winning journalist. He's a senior editor at Mongabay. He has been working on climate change, energy transition, and sustainability. He's won the Red Ink Award, and he was also the lead fellow with Solutions Journalism Network. His work largely focuses at the intersection of climate policy, industrial emissions, sustainable finance, and public accountability.
And thank you, ACJ, for inviting me to speak on climate finance from market perspective. Though I also do not call myself business journalist, and I don't think journalists should call themselves in any specific criteria. We are journalists, and whatever comes our way, we prepare ourselves and respond. So, and this subject itself is a new phenomena, ESG. You know, it's in last 5-6 years, it has been executed and still maturing. So, but I also say that after like such a good meal, it is boring and tough to talk about numbers of finance. So we'll try to make it interactive as much as possible. So I'll ask first question. How many of you invest in a stock market? Great. I was not expecting this number because in student life, if you're doing so, quite aware you are. Okay, so the second question is, why do you prefer one company over other? Anyone can respond. Yes, and you? Okay, great. And this is a slightly complex question. Do you ever consider emission or their performance on environmental front? Yeah, so that's the thing. We can easily understand. Especially post-COVID, I have seen number of my friends leaving job and now getting into stock market to earn their livelihood. And we talk. My wife works in this personal finance segment. And I don't see anybody talking about these issues, like emission is a factor when they are deciding to put their money into a particular company. Why? it is not like they are not concerned about environmental issues. We in Delhi, we keep facing, the pollution, heat wave, whatnot. We are very much facing and we are very much aware, but it definitely reflects that these subjects are yet to be mainstreamed. And in contrast to this, if you go to Europe, we have seen a political party emerging from green concerns. And that is not our issue to talk. Here we are talking about fund and finance. So there are big capital, big group, big funds. They cannot call themselves sustainable if they do not align with certain environmental criteria. Before this, I'll discuss why this change, why this shift there in Europe. Because their climate risk is considered as financial risk. And when climate risk is now seen from new lens, like financial risk, it moves from environmental page to balance sheet. And when it reaches to balance sheet, regulators are forced to bring a system where investors can see what kind of risk they are facing. So, what kind of risk your investment can face if you are investing in a company? Physical risk. This is an annual phenomena in Gurugram. We see a car floating on road just besides a posh colony where if you want to buy a flat, it will be of like multi-crores. Sometimes I think 75 crore rupees is a huge money. And there the situation you can see. So if extreme weather events, we know that it's increasing. If it can asset damage and it can disrupt your supply chain, the company I'm saying where we are investing our money. Similarly, there is a regulatory risk. Suddenly government will decide to put cess on coal. Or they decide, okay, we will not allow diesel or petrol car in Delhi. And we are invested in a company which is into the making car, like Honda. I think, in my knowledge, they do not have any electric vehicles in India. So, and when we are seeing that number of companies are introducing new car, and that is electric, so definitely we see a Honda like brand is lagging. Name is just for the example, don't read it as a news. Okay, so there is a transition risk also. We are invested in like NTPC or any energy company, and suddenly government decides, no, we will not use coal energy, thermal energy anymore. We will be focusing on renewables. What will happen to NTPC and what will be happening to our investment? And then the litigation risk. Yes, I think today somebody talked about it. We know as environmental concerns are increasing, people are getting more and more aware. Activists are already there. They keep pulling companies into NGT and Supreme Court. And if order goes against them, it may impose penalties and legal liabilities. And ultimately, it will come to our investment that way. And there is a reputational risk. We saw in AI Summit, one minor goof-up by a private university, how much it can cost to your branding. So we are not talking about the universities, but similar goof-up, if it happens in the company we are investing, in terms of greenwashing, and if it is reported, or any wrong claims, or the mistake they can do. So that will cost a lot to them and to us as well as the investment. So, and the shift eventually pushes regulators to ask companies to disclose more. And once something reaches so we are talking now, we understand the risk, regulators have understood the risk. Then what next? Here, as a retail investors, we may think about 5-year or short-term gain, but institutional investors, they cannot avoid long-term risk, especially institutional investors here is like pension fund and insurance companies and sovereign wealth fund. So they think in decades, and they cannot avoid any systemic risk, and climate change is a systemic risk. So the shift happened in Europe, where regulators, post-Paris Agreement, when there is an ecosystem building and they realize that regulation is needed because investment ultimately decides where our industry is going or system is going. So they began restructuring sustainable finance architecture. And I have listed few of the funds. This is not all. We can, with one normal Google search, we can find many more. But there is a Article 8 fund that is called light green. Its name is light green. And there is an Article 9 fund, it is called deep green. And together they control $10 trillion. So there are other examples, Canada Pension Fund, Dutch Pension Fund. So they have now gradually a mandate to invest in companies which are more ESG aligned or environmentally aligned. So climate aligned capital is institutional, it is a structure, and it is large. So in front of Professor Chandrasekhar, I'm talking logic of capital. It's really challenging for me, but this is the role assigned to me. What we understood, capital follows certain logic. If risk enters allocation decision, disclosure becomes necessary. One question anybody can say, what do you think? If these funds are now dedicated or up to some extent they are investing in environmentally good company, what is guiding them? Their morality or the risk? Yeah, that's true, because morality may guide or may shape the branding, but when it comes to allocation, it is the risk. They think about, if I am putting this much money, what return we will get. So market price risk and disclosure makes risk visible, because risk has a price, and you cannot price what you cannot measure, and you cannot measure what you cannot disclose. So in such scenario, when global environment, the financial environment I'm talking about, is evolving, what India should do? Before that, I'll highlight some of the aspects what I have observed in the last 2 years. I was in Baku covering COP29. It was termed as climate COP. And we have heard the story what happened there. The real tension we felt there for 10 days, two groups were talking about two different issues. Developing countries were continuously talking about finance, please give us the finance, then only talk about the other goals. And developed countries were talking about mitigation goals, ambition. So we agreed what happened, $300 billion by 2035, but that was not the story for me. Last day, that went beyond the schedule. On Sunday, when the final plenary was happening, Indian official Chandni Raina was speaking there, and her image was published by almost every media organization. As a journalist, we look for the narrative. Numbers are really scary, and we also get a feedback that nobody is reading your story that way. So what impressed me is that she was literally able to translate that numbers, that frustration in her when she was speaking. And that image remains with me. And since then, we have seen India changing its stance gradually. In last 2 economic survey, post COP29, they have dedicated one full chapter to climate change. And within that, climate finance has got good space. These are the figures I got from last economic survey that came in January. That number we have already talked. Shibi and Archana, everybody mentioned that what is the requirement, what is the gap. But what I want to highlight here is the momentum is changing. this particular government, if you followed the last budget, one thing was very stark. Since this government has come to power, there was a big announcement regarding the environment in each and every budget, whether it's a 175 gigawatt, PMAY, Ujjwala scheme, rooftop solar, so many announcements. This year, it was almost silent, except that CCUS. And we know why CCUS comes. CCUS means you understand and you admit that there is no other way to reduce emission. Then you are talking about carbon capture and all. So that change is visible in approach. Second, government has not, Archana highlighted, government has not submitted its NAP, National Adaptation Plan, and that nationally NDCs, you know. So it was the industry like country like India, which has I think it's the third biggest emitter, talking about being superpower or the whatever, like the 2047 goal and all, and we are not able to submit the nationally determined contribution or the NDCs on time, and we don't know what will happen. So this is the political part of it. But if we want to attract capital and our system is evolving somewhere else, what should we do? Should Indian company adopt, or they should risk getting less competitive in attracting global pool of finance? And that is what we will talk today. But it is quite easy to say that, you disclose more and you will get the capital. That is not the case, what our previous speaker have highlighted. Because there are other structural issues, like higher risk premium. You know, when whoever is investing in the market, we know when we go to a large cap, from large cap to a small cap, we know that there is a risk. Still we invest because we want to price that risk, we want maximum return. So that is the reason. So similar, if somebody is from developed countries investing in India, they feel there is a risk here. The reason, I will go to next slide and we'll discuss, and they want more out of that investment. So that is one challenge. Then currency volatility. If 100 rupees I have taken loan, $100, and same person, so a person in Europe has taken the $100 as the loan, and dollar values we have seen in last 1-2 years what has happened. So without doing anything, without any change, our loan amount increases. This is just a simple explanation I'm saying. So then policy uncertainty. I was talking to one expert, and he said, what happens, you know, if you are investing, if we are going to investor and asking that please invest in our one solar power plant. So if you are in Europe or developed economy, there are chances that the project deadline, if it is 5 years, it may get finished in 5 years. But in India, by default, we know that it might go to 8 to 10 years. So every change has a cost. And then sell-over corporate bond. We discussed, somebody raised a question, professor also responded to that. This is one tool, but the bond market is so small, mostly dominated by government and large companies. If you are a small company, you want to innovate and you want money, you won't be getting easily. And then the legal and enforcement concerns. Disclosure operates within this structural reality. Because these challenges were not new. We are talking from climate lens, so we are mentioning it, but attracting finance from developed to developed countries has been there. Or we have been talked where is the capital, where it is needed. We have talked in previous sessions. So, and these are the couple of stories I'll highlight. I wrote a story last year. It was based on a paper. And there, the headline is the price of going green is higher for the global south. So CB gave the example, I think, or Archana, you said. So if India is investing, it's a published material, not a random wo. If we are deciding to establish 100 megawatt solar power, India will have to pay 10 to 11% of interest. and South Africa will be paying 11 to 13%. Means if we are taking 100 rupees, in 1 year we have to pay 111, they have to pay 113. And in comparison to that, Germany and United States, you can see the number. And this was the paper published by Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment. You see that, you can read the quote. Lisa says, I talked to her, and what she said, that cost of capital is arguably the most critical determinant of whether climate project get financed or not, and yet it is rarely addressed. So they compared India, France, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and United States. And they showed that fundamentals of India are far better as compared to them in terms of GDP growth and GDP debt ratio. Still, India is a government bond. They are not talking about the capital going to a renewable sector. You can see the gap, how much interest we are supposed to pay, 7.1% in compared to other. France is supposed to pay 2.8%. So in this framework, now we understood that disclosure is necessary. Disclosure, there is an ecosystem building in favor of disclosure, but it will not solve the complete problem that way. And what it does, it reduces information asymmetry. Like see, there are two companies, A, B, and I want to invest money, and I have some money, and I've decided to invest. And if A and B, they have a proper disclosure that way, I can take a call only when I have the evidence there. Here, different perspective emerges. There are experts. They talk about that disclosure is secondary thing. We need bankable projects. Last year, RBI governor also highlighted this, and he recommended that India should create pool of bankable projects to attract global capital. So the first narrative says that disclosure is a secondary thing. And second argument talks about disclosure ensures competitiveness. You are ahead with your peers if your data is proper and you have released. So if investors want to invest, they can make a mind there. And third aspect is disclosure ensures authenticity. It prevents greenwashing. So it is important for overall ecosystem. All three logics have its merit. And as a journalist, I'm not an economist, I see all three should come together and then it serves the purpose. So in response to that, SEBI, India has now an evolving system, which is called BRSR, Business Responsibility Sustainability Report, BRSR, yeah. And it started in 2009 when MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, released a guideline of 9 principles. And SEBI operationalized it as a BRSR. So as of now, it applies to top 1,000 listed companies. And it focuses on regulating information. Remember, not emission. We are here talking about what is its impact on the emission. So the journey you can see. Even before BRSR, there was BRR, Business Responsibility Report, that was coming since 2012 to 2020 before BRSR was adopted. The gap was that BRR was sort of subject to response to questions. But in BRSR, SEBI is trying to create a structure where where we can compare the information and make a sense about it. We can see what kind of subject we cover, discover. Here, climate change, diversity, water management, energy, everything is there, and other subjects we know. There is another narrative also. One, we can say that it is response to the global market. There is another narrative. In 2015, there were 2 big developments. One was the SDG and the Sustainable Development Goal, and another was the Paris Agreement. So internally also, there was a concern how to achieve those goals. And government may set a target, but ultimately it comes to the local bodies, companies, or the local system to achieve those goals. That way, so that was the reason it was adopted. And then we have to, there are discussion what has happened in last 5 years. We have to remember that BRSR does not cap emission. It does not impose carbon pricing. It is not emission reduction, it is not a trading system where emission reductions are traded. And it does not penalize high emitters. But what it does, it focuses on measurement of emissions. It supports or motivates transparency, comparability. It enables investors' scrutiny. Not only investors, we can also, as a journalist, we can scrutinize. There are, 140 indicators where data are emerging. And we, as a journalist, can see, I'll go to next slide and explain what kind of reporting is happening now. And then may influence cost of capital. There is one example recently, last week only, HSBC India, it's an internal example. They came up with a scheme, a fund, where they will be offering loan to companies, and that will be based on the ESG performance. So if you have a higher ESG rating, it means you will be getting cheaper loan. So this is an ecosystem evolving, so it may lead to reduced cost of capital, not in comparison to developed country versus developing. These are the structural issues and that political leaders and economists have to deal with that. But it can help within the competition. Like if I'm in competition with her and I have a better ESG, I can attract some finance. And then it encourages alignment of transition plans. So what happens, now there's a trend where everybody is announcing net zero goal. And Indian companies are also announcing that, okay, we are going to achieve this particular like net zero by 2035 or 40. But nobody knows how. But what we believe that if it keeps coming, if people keeps talking about it, if data gradually improves, the ecosystem will build, and that way they will be checked. Like we can ask a particular company, NTPC, okay, if you have announced, what are you going to do and how you are going to achieve the target. So, okay, sorry. So there is a key debate. How ESG is performing now. So one is about compliance versus strategic shift. Before BRSR came, expert says, we are dependent on experts for our understanding. They said there were companies which were giving good report, they were disclosing. But majority are taking as a compliance thing. Only because SEBI has said, we have to meet the target. So there was a report by IIM Ahmedabad and NIIF that came in 2025. So there they read and analyzed the data of 1,012 company of 2022-23. And there they found, just one example, with the catch that this is the data of 2022-23. Now we are in a different year, so we must have matured. But what is their observation? They say that one company, which is supposed to give its data of how much waste they are recycling, so that data was higher than what waste they generate. Means if they are creating 100 kg of waste, they recycle 150 kg. So, these are the story for us. If you are in reporting companies and the businesses, we can highlight these things. So that report, and the SEBI thing is based on 9 principles. There are 3 group thing, A, B, C, and within C there are 9 principles, C section, and then in all those 9 principles, principle 6 focuses on respecting, protecting, and restoring the environment. So they analyzed 22 sectors. They clubbed all 1,012 companies in 22 sectors and highlighted how they are reporting. So they are saying that 10 sectors reported disclosure in the 66 to 80% range, while another 10 have reported in 51 to 65% range. So these are the facts they have highlighted. I'll recommend you to read. I also got to learn a lot from that report. And, you know, they highlighted one more thing, you know, we keep talking about the mining sector and metals. They found in the report that their ESG disclosure was far better as compared to other segments. And they said that it might be because they are already under scrutiny. So scrutiny makes sense when we are talking about ESG data. So as a journalist, that is our job. And then second debate happening is about assurance and verification. So what happens? This is a self-declaration, you know, BRSR. And in 2023, SEBI came up with a BRSR core, where they gave a different format. There you can give a exact data, how much energy you consume, what is the source, how much waste you generate, how much you recycle, what is the source of your water, and also there you give a data which can be compared. That data needs to be verified by the third party. But here there is another debate. It is up to me to go to an agency and say, okay, please verify my report. And I will go to only that particular agency which will give most favorable report, you know. So that is one debate. And so that is a concern, whether companies should be forced or scrutinized, or SEBI should come up with certain regulation or not. There is another debate that this is extra for companies, so it can create pressure on them. And companies always lobby against that, you know. When in last, I think 24 or 25, SEBI came up with a system to include the supply chain. And there was a pressure, and then SEBI extended the deadline. And this is not, this kind of lobbying is not limited to India. Similar thing is happening in Europe. There is a mandate that has to be executed in 2027. They are also following the same path, like top listed companies have to disclose all kind of ESG. And they again pressure government. They say that it is quite tough. So EU is also trying to ease it. So this is a continuous tussle. What is the way forward? We don't know, and we have to see. And then there is a third debate happening is about a forward-looking transition planning. As of now, what happens? If companies are supposed to report about their past experiences, like what has they done in last 5 years. Nobody is asking them to talk about next 5 years. And this is where I'm questioning that part, that net zero commitment. It is fashion now. So IFA, it has come up with a report in January only. They conducted a study of 30 top companies. And there they find that hardly 6 among 30 companies are giving some transition plan. How will they achieve their net zero goal? And investors don't think in like 50 years. If I'm putting my money or anybody is putting their money, they will try to gauge what is happening in next 5 years, next 10 years. So that is where this is important, transition thing. But then there is other debate. The format SEBI has offered, there is no space for future or the transition plan. So again, there is a debate whether company, the SEBI should create this kind of structure where there should be a space where forward-looking plans should be reported and what should be done. Let's see what happens in future. And then does disclosure change behavior? I think that is the most important thing, and as a journalist, I feel this will change the ecosystem. It's not a one-time phenomena, and it's not like we are doing for last 50 years. It is evolving, and definitely I believe that we started writing for last 2 to 3 years, and also it is limited to what SEBI is saying. Okay, SEBI has come up with the value chain part, SEBI has come up with scope 1, scope 2, they have extended their target from 250 companies to 1,000 companies. Gradually, we are also getting mature to report on individual companies. So the ecosystem where everybody will walk, and I think it will change the behavior. So BSR is not just a disclosure framework, it is contested regulatory space. As a journalist, I feel, and I'm lucky that I'm talking to you people, we as a journalist should not celebrate what SEBI has done so far. Rather, we should question all companies on all these fronts, whether they have a transition plan or not. And we must appreciate all 6 companies, though IFA has not given name of them, it's our job to explore, but we should appreciate those companies which have already made transition plan. Then whether it's a compliance or a strategic, whether they are trying to do themselves and compete in the market, or it's just a formality. That is our job to do. And then the transition plan, you can say. So this is my final reflection. I believe disclosure is not emission reduction directly, because it's not carbon market, it's not a trading system, the emission trading system I'm talking about. But it is focusing on accountability. It is focusing on disclosure that brings credibility to the particular company which follows it. And then it removes the opacity, which has high perceived risk. And we know among the structural issue, it is after listening to experts, it's saying this is like sustainable finance depend on credibility is tough. But within this frame, what I'm assigned to talk about, the ESG and its impact, disclosure and its impact on the emission and finance, I would like to say that it plays a role certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful talk. I wanted to first ask you, before I open up for questions, about the story you wrote about the value supply chain and the changes in the ESG framework. So have companies started doing that, and how are they going about? At what level do they stop? What does that look like?
See, I think we know scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. The first part is scope 3. Scope 1 and scope 2, you can easily, scope 1 is the emission you are creating in your own production system. Scope 2 is what, when you buy electricity, if emission is happening with that, like if you are buying the coal power, so the emission with that is coming in scope 2. And scope 3 is the value chain. The bigger the company, bigger the value chain, 1,000, 12, like from where you are bringing the raw material, how you are bringing. So it is always tough, and it's evolving. I think if I'm correct, I don't remember the date, but SEBI included, it's the latest development in that part. SEBI said that you have to incorporate value chain also, and there is another fact that the biggest emission happens in value chain. So it is important, and I think they have given certain numbers that we can get easily there, reading that report or getting on the website, SEBI website. But I think there is a deadline, and some 250 companies, don't go by the number, please read the story or the SEBI website, and they are going gradually, first 250 companies and then going to other part.
Okay, and so these documents are, where can, like, if journalists have to go through it, are they found on the company websites, or like, is there a single platform where we can all access it?
Yeah, so all the announcement comes from SEBI as it is there at SEBI website. And the disclosure is on the website of companies.
Okay.
So if you want to read particular, like Tata Power, if you want to know their ESG disclosure, what kind of emission they have, you can go to their website. You can just search on Google. You can type Tata Power 2023-24 BRSR report. It can easily pop up.
It's an annual report.
Yeah, this is the annual report.
Okay. I think those were my questions, yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is Shilpa Rangarajan, and my question to you would be, you briefly spoke about how, and this also came up in the conference a bit earlier, that MSMEs often, when it comes to disclosures and stuff, MSMEs are the ones who tend to show the most resistance because it genuinely takes a lot of capex and other expenditures. My question would be, what is a quick and a verifiable check that a journalist can use to sort of see whether the numbers that are being reported by the MSMEs or even, honestly, even by the big corporates, how do we check that it reflects the reality of the situation?
So first question you asked in the previous session about the MSMEs.
Yes.
So there is this is evolving system. And by 2027, I think first lot of scope 3 or the value chain emission will be reported. So if reports come, it will be easier for us to see whether what kind of reporting is happening. And obviously it's a big chunk. And we must understand, see, climate change has come as a challenge to not only us, for them as well, who are into the business. And we also understand what kind of challenge they have faced, from demonetization to the climate change and everything. You go in any cluster and you see the kind of challenge they are facing. There is lack of capital, there is lack of human resource, there is lack of expertise. That is even with the big companies. So when it comes to MSME, I think they need to be supported by SEBI, by the big corporates who are, and it has to evolve. Like if they are telling, suppose XYZ, the top 10 companies, they are talking to their ESG, their value chain partners, okay, bring the data. How they will do, we have to see whether they are empowering their partners, they are giving them expertise, they are giving them technology, they are giving them format, and then telling them, or just pushing them. That will be our story. If we highlight that, suddenly there is a pressure on MSMEs to report on that. So that is the concern, and it's an evolving picture. As far as data is concerned, see what is available, we have to look for that. Within that, there is a good number, n number of stories.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to go first? Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Palak Gupta. So, as you mentioned that ESG reporting, a lot of it, like the BRSR framework of SEBI, it's based on self-declaration of the company, and even the BRSR core that you talked about. So, third-party verification is required, but you also mentioned that the company would obviously go to a third party which would side for its propaganda or favorability. So my question was, as a budding journalist, when we report on ESG standards and ESG reporting of a company, so what angles or what aspects or sources should we speak to or look into to get a clear perspective which does not favor a particular company or bias or show any sort of particular bias while reporting on ESG framework?
See, there is no one clear formula, what is the way forward. If you go deep into the subject, we know who is working well, who is not. So those who are working well, we'll go to them, we'll ask them, okay, this is happening, and how journalists function. You know, when we go to government office, generally I look for a person who is disgruntled. He reveals information about what is happening about the politics. So there is no clear-cut formula, do this and data will come your way. We are into the system, and we have to understand what will go in our way. That is the thing.
I have a supplementary thing to this.
Yeah.
So if this is an annual report, are the regulations changing in a way where can we compare year-on-year reports, but then also the functioning of the company is different? Do you think there's merit in doing that maybe?
Yeah, I think that is the process SEBI is trying to do, creating a system where data is comparable. That is the ultimate goal.
Bringing transparency means it's not just reveal the information, reveal in a way which can make sense to readers, which can make sense to investors, which can make sense to journalists. So that is the challenge. If that is not making sense, we can even question SEBI as a journalist that, okay, the format you have come up with, that I think I highlighted here, that the forward-looking plan, we are blaming company. I talked to the expert and he asked that to who should we blame, company or the SEBI? Because SEBI has not given the format. So when we go deep into it, we realize what is the lacuna and everything is a story for us that way. Yeah, so that I told you, this is sort of evolution. BRR was there, then BRSR came, then BRSR core came. And BRSR core's total mandate is the comparison. There you can get a data in a particular format. In like, they give you, there is a column, there is a row, there is a column, energy emission, what was in previous year, what is in this year. For us, if you want to compare 5 years of data, we can bring other reports and we can see, compare what is there. Now comes the verification part. See, if SEBI is not able to do as a journalist, it is definitely, it needs a year for us to do legwork, to talk to experts, to understand the nuances. So what we can say, if data is making sense, and we are able to read the crisis, we are able to read any goof up, able to read any lacuna company is doing, this is a story for us. If it is not even functioning, the BRSR core I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the BRSR in general. So then we'll question the SEBI, then we'll question the government. And I just forgot to highlight, it's not just the BRSR, we have talked, the experts have talked in the morning about other disclosure. It's happening across the board. RBI came with the green deposit norms. So they said that what kind of format is needed, what kind of claim is needed, where if a company is investing green deposit in which company. So disclosure is happening, it's evolving, and we have to learn, we have to adopt accordingly and question them.
Yeah, I think it's also a question of why, I mean, the push is to have a better verification system, right? If we can't verify it, then
no, but I will request you to read BRSR core first. You know, then you can see what is there. I felt, while reading it, I felt it's a good source of data. If they, like, if it is not how that IIM report highlights, they are able to mention what they are mentioning, one company they have not named, is highlighting the total amount of recycled waste is more than the waste generated. It's a data, and they have read it in the report. So there is enough data for us to do a story, even now, and things will evolve.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Sir, as a journalist, I want to know from you that while you were reporting, what I read and I understood from the industry wide that before the latest BRSR core, what happened was these the companies who wanted to escape the scope 3 norms, instead of buying raw materials from the MSMEs and the local suppliers, they started to import it from China, because then then SEBI doesn't have a lot of control. So in the, while you were researching, analyzing, while you were talking to the industry experts, did you also come across the fact that the companies have started to import at a cheaper rate because then they are able to escape? And has the latest BRSR norms tackled this situation?
I think this hypothesis is I find it odd, because what is there, if I'm right, that they are asking you to give data of everything. It's not about whether you are importing or exporting, or you are taking from one cluster in Chennai or somewhere else. You have to give the data how much raw material you are using and how you have sourced it. So that way you have to explain what is the process of, if you are saying taking like fiber. So if you have sourced from Bangladesh, that the textile part and all. So that's a big complex subject, and I don't think any of us have an answer. And SEBI, I don't think, is a mechanism to regulate that part. It falls in other ministries. SEBI is saying, okay, if you are listed in Indian market, like BSE and NSE, you have to disclose these things, and then we can question.
So have there been like discussions or at least push for it being a more interdepartmental and interministerial system rather than just being done by SEBI?
I don't think so. Like in last session also, one expert talked about it's a fragmented set of disclosure. RBI is talking about differently. SEBI is saying something different. I talked about BRSR and escaped the bond thing. In 2016, I think, SEBI come up with a norms for bond, green bond, that evolve in different bond, but transition bond, etc. So later they incorporated BRSR there. Then there is a taxonomy, what is being talked about. So taxonomy and like everything is discussed in a fragmented way. Definitely going forward, we have to evolve, we have to understand, see, if you regulate somebody, 10%, 20% will follow, some will try to escape. And that way the evolution happened. As of now, I think even SEBI part is being evolved. It's not even mature enough.
Yeah, you can ask.
Hi sir, my name is Asmi, and my question is, like, we have seen several conglomerates receiving different ESG ratings in India in itself and globally. So like if Adani or Tata has some governance lapses, or if there is any issue going on, several Indian rating agencies do not even have a standard rating, and that actually hampers the interest of investors. So what could be done to actually improve this, and how difficult it is for Indians to actually come up with something that is trusted by investors and it can be better for the longer run, considering we are focusing so much on climate finance and ESG disclosures now?
So I think we both have like similar answer. As a journalist, what we can do if we find, I covered crime in beginning phase of my career when I was with TOI. So one story I got that when cops do not find any sort of evidence, so they have few reserve pool of person. They put them in court, okay, and they will just say, okay, this is the thing. It was initially a challenge for us because ultimately we are not able to prove. But later we realized, okay, the same person is coming again and again. So what we highlight, okay, this is a set person coming again. So there is something. So then we are questioning the whole department. I think similarly, if we find any agency giving a wrong data, as a journalist I'm talking about, and it is happening again and again, or there is a trend into it, there is a systematic flaw, we can highlight that. And highlighting does not limit our question to the particular agency, even to SEBI. Why SEBI is not putting pressure on them? That can happen. Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry to come in. I'm just, thanks for this thing. I learned a lot, but I'm just trying to understand. Okay, so you're saying disclosure is not emission reduction, okay? And I like that. But the point is, why do we want disclosure? We want disclosure because we are hoping this would be a way in which multiple agents can pressure these entities to actually reduce emissions. Now, if you then say that we'll go to scope 3, and you say we're going to bring the MSMEs in. Now, the reason why MSMEs might not actually be able to get into technologies or scales or practices which actually, are less emitting is because of the fact that margins in the MSME sector are very low. Mortality rates of firms are very high. So if you suppose, is it that we are diverting from the essential problem? It is to have a situation in which we can actually make it viable for MSMEs to undertake this on the basis possibly of some state support or some other way, rather than saying that by taking disclosure down to MSMEs, because if it actually is going to affect me as a big, one of the 1,000 listed companies, he's right. I'll stop buying from that MSME, So in which case you'll increase mortality rates in the MSME. It's like stubble burning, that we know that there is a lack of viability of crop production in India. That is why farmers want MSP. Now then you say that you stop stubble burn. So they're saying that, listen, give us money. We'll adopt some other practice. But otherwise, if we don't use this technology, we'd end up, being worse off. So, I'm only wondering whether, just focusing on disclosures in part takes attention away from what are the real problems of actually coming to terms with emissions? I mean, I just
No, sir, I think this is a story for us, what you are saying, that the approach government is taking might be challenged, but just I'm taking risk, like I'm not the person to talk to you on the subject, you will guide us. But I think, sir, when we are talked about in our locality to segregate waste in a family, so what I'm saying that climate change has come and government has set a target of 2070. So the target has to be met by everybody in the system. And what I assume that if SEBI is telling one particular big company listed in the market, okay, you now incorporate value chains, so they are not telling them to dump them. And what they are saying that improve the system and disclose that. But there is definitely a risk what you are just highlighting. And we have written a number of stories post demonetization, how it affected MSMEs. So this is our job as a journalist to highlight how the new norms is affecting the local players.
Yeah, you. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Samriti. So since BERSR is a self-assessment, it's a disclosure by the company, I wanted to know what is the scope of greenwashing that is done under this so far. Have there been any instances where a company has been trying to either portray a certain type of information so that it puts them in a more positive light, or anything else that we should keep mind of?
So she's asking what is the greenwashing in this, and how can you focus on certain companies in terms of
Yes.
basically investigate?
I personally think that there is a 100% chance of greenwashing. And that is where we are asking about that whether we should move from compliance part to some other mechanism. And there, there is a push from companies that is they are already overburdened with the regulation part. So there is a chance, and we have to see how we can highlight. See, no crime comes simply in front of you. No, we have to go deeper. So we will see. We'll read the report. And I was talking to one expert in IFA, and I asked them, can you mention few companies which are doing good? Because they have done a proper study of like 3 to 4 years of ESG data. So they mentioned, I will not name here, and they also mentioned the challenge part of the company. They highlighted that in a data, if we go into the minute details, we'll get a story here. There is a space to write the name of a person who is in charge of your ESG thing, the climate vertical. And their companies are putting CEO's name, who is not at all bothered or involved in it. They are dealing with the businesses at the different level. So when as a journalist, I will not know. But when I talked to him, I understood, okay, this can also be a part we can explore and we can do a story. So there is a chance, and this is a story for us.
Yeah, you can ask.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarthak. And sir, I was very curious when you showed us that part of your story that included a solar panel, and you mentioned that the biggest fund involved in companies is the transition from switching from traditional energy to green energy is the transition, right? So my question was, sir, what percentage of so-called green funding is going to be changed versus the remaining existing assets? So how much money the company is really investing in green funding in order to switch their energy requirements versus, transitioning to their funding their existing assets?
Okay, I think the question you want to ask is how much companies are spending to have better ESG metrics? Is that what the question is?
No, it revolves around how much money they really spending on, switching on green energy, or they are using that money to, improve their existing assets.
I don't think any of my slides talked about this, and I don't think we have a data. This is there is a two segment of disclosure. One is the financial disclosure that has been happening. If in the NSE or BSE you can go and companies are supposed to respond in certain, like within few hours if some big change is happening. So that is the financial disclosure. These are the non-financial disclosure. There they do not say how much money they are investing or what percentage of money they are investing on renewable and all. What they are saying that, as of now they are saying that what are the amount of energy they are consuming on different criteria, and how much of this come from renewable, how much of this comes from the other sources. So these kind of details are there. I think we are confused somewhere. Some confusion.
I want to ask this third-party organizations, is that like a list released by SEBI? Like, is there any, or could be anyone? What is the?
No, I think they are listed. They are also registered with the SEBI. So this is the SEBI registered company.
Okay.
And I think that is the way.
So is there no way to hold them accountable for the verification?
Obviously, that I mentioned. No? Like if we see a wrong happening, if we see a trend, we can see which, how to tell it. If we see that one company, not to name, we know that number of, these days one company is the leader and they get questioned in many countries, Australia, India, and like we know, so if we are interested in their balance sheet and their non-financial disclosure, we can read and we can say which one is the agency which are giving them certificates. If we find a certain trend, we can question the rating agencies as well.
Okay. I'll just intersperse one online question. Elisa wants to ask, when it comes to disclosure, are there any best practices from other parts of the world that India could learn from?
I think it's a general remark. I have not studied it properly, but I think Europe is ahead, and Europe is quite ahead in terms of disclosure. And I think that was my story idea. I was discussing in my team that, okay, India has done that FTA with Europe, and they are coming with the disclosure where even the companies with a certain degree of businesses in Europe, they have to disclose. So this was my story idea, that whether with the existing system India has in terms of disclosure, will be able to respond to that or not. So definitely Europe has a better disclosure system, yeah.
I think Shilpa has another question.
Yeah, just one more question. With the new, you must have heard of the airport privatization and that giving about 6 airport contracts to the Adani Group, and also a lot of coal block relaxations that ended up largely favoring the Adani Group. So with the new policy decisions increasingly favoring these big conglomerates, where do we draw the line at credibility of financial or non-financial, especially ESG disclosure? Like,
see, I'm not an economist and not the right person to say, but definitely I'm a citizen and a journalist, and I feel that we believe in a system where everybody gets an equal chance, and then only we can sustain as an individual. We have seen similar experiment with the phone, with the data. When one company came into the market that disrupted with the EG pricing, and then when company disappeared, they are now increasing the cost. So we see that kind of thing happening, and obviously I can say this is not a good practice. So this is not good practice, and if government of the day promoting one company or any particular company, this is something not good, and sir can tell us better from other part of the world what has happened. As far as ESG is concerned, I don't think it falls in ESG part. If ESG is what you know, if you are listed in NSE, BSE, okay, if you fall in 1,000 companies, you have to disclose certain environmental issues, how you are performing on them. So if the company you mentioned, Adani, and they have different verticals. So how many of their verticals fall in that 1,000 company, we have to check. We have to go to their ESG disclosure, and then we have to find data accordingly. That is the thing.
Yeah, you can ask.
So I had a question regarding social disclosures. When we see companies take up a project, they also should disclose who the community is in that particular area being affected by these. So doesn't that also have an impact on the emissions and the sustainable finance that they're going to do?
Definitely, you know, The disclosure part is also asking a data how much biodiversity is affected. And see, climate change, here we are talking about market perspective, but if in our newsroom, we don't talk just about market. We talk about the whole ecosystem, the forest, FRA, tribals. So everything is an ecosystem that will ensure the mitigation and adaptation part. So definitely, it's a part of the discussion regarding climate change, and it should be highlighted that way. But directly, we cannot say it reduces the emission. So there should be a metrics to measure when we are talking about emission. But overall, ecological services and all these are very important for climate change, to deal with the climate change. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just add, so I think with projects, there's also environment impact assessments and social impact assessment documents that come out, which are very important for the approval of the project. This is a more of an annual, the company's year-long, emissions and the disclosures.
And I'll add to this, this is one aspect here in this ESG format. SEBI asked this part, whether there is an environmental impact assessment. And IIM Ahmedabad report says this is the one criteria where least companies have responded. So that is there.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Pooja. So, sir, this entire idea of ESG started in India since 2021, if I'm right. Now, coming back to the question from where you started the entire lecture, how many of us look at the emissions while investing on the stock market? It is very less, despite we being journalists and into climate change and all of that. So how would this entire idea get its shape, and how do you penetrate it to the common people? Because the entire idea is to let them know which company they are investing in regarding their emissions and all of that. So what role we as journalists can play in this, or should policy makers play any role in this so that this entire idea gets penetrated to the common mass?
So it's a very good question, and I would like to say something very personal. Since our student age, we were inclined to certain ideology, and how were we countered? People say that if you are leftist, why you are studying in a public school? Why don't you go to government school? Or if you are a communist, why don't you give money, leave your job and go in a village? So see, we are human beings, we function in layer, It is not like that if I'm liking or supporting any ideology, I should sacrifice everything I have. It's my opinion. I feel that this idea is good for betterment of the society, and it should be opted by all, and everybody should sacrifice something. Otherwise, my kid will ask, why later phase of life, when they will suffer in village and my neighbor will go in California, so they will ask, you are not good father, that way. So it does not make sense that as a journalist, I should start investing in a certain thing only because I am aware. Today I am aware about this thing, tomorrow I'll be talking about 420, IPC 420. My job is to segregate myself from journalist to the individual. I'll highlight a trend, but I'll go with the society and betterment for myself also. So overall, and this kind of investment will not wait for me. If it makes sense for the people, if it makes sense for the investors, what SEBI is trying to do, that it is trying to create an ecosystem where everybody see the value of investing in the market. So if everybody is doing, we will also do. I tried to create that question just to make it interactive. That was the point.
Thank you, sir.
One thing I think would add to her point is also, how do we simplify all these dense reports to create more awareness about it?
It's a very good, like we keep struggling every day in our office. We work in a segment where subject is full of jargon. Climate change, climate finance, and even I write a copy, I get number of questions from my copy editor that please explain this, please explain that, and sometimes I feel frustrated because which looks common to me, this is being questioned by her. But this is a day-to-day struggle we are doing. We are evolving. It is up to us to talk to experts, make the language possible. Now we have a different technology also. So that is a challenge we have, and it's our job. I think researchers work in different segments. They are trying to deal with big ideas. People are living the normal life, and we are the bridge. Our job is to learn and take the idea from there, translate into the simplest possible language, and bring it to here. So that is the way. There is no other way. Like, we have to keep struggling.
Sir, deviating a little bit apart from finance, sir, a lot of times a counter narrative is set that in a country like India, there are other problems like poverty, unemployment, and policies. So a lot of times when you talk about climate and ESG disclosures, so there are people who would come up with these counter arguments that there are other things that are more important. Like, for example, a company should be judged more on how much employment they are creating and how much they are contributing towards India's growth story, especially the segments that, for example, metal industries, coal, and renewable energy. So it's more on how much employment they are creating rather than we as journalists who would want to focus on climate and focusing on ESG disclosures. So have you come across this narrative and how do you tackle that? How do you face that argument, sir?
I think, see, in the beginning I said that I am not a finance journalist, and I'm not an environment journalist too. I'm just a journalist, you know. So for me, I am given mandate here to talk about ESG. I'm talking about ESG. But this ESG is not different from my life experiences, you know. I was talking the same question from sir, and we have seen this in Baku, that developing countries were continuously pushing for money, and developed countries were asking for the mitigation goal. Increase your mitigation goal and don't talk about anything else. So this kind of conflict is there. This kind of conflict is here also. But within ESG framework, there are good criteria. I talked about climate finance and mitigation, but there are how many women are there? How many tier 2 cities they have opted to function, you know? So there are other criteria too that does not talk about environment and climate change. And third, I think Sunita Narayan, you know, no, you don't know. She's a head of Center for Science and Environment. So that is not unique part. What I feel, she is one among the oldest people working in environment segment in India. The CSC started in 1980s. So since then they are working. So some couple of years ago, she wrote that I'm happy that climate change is now becoming mainstream. Every media organization have now reporter. My editor, yes, Gopi Krishna Warrior, he also said that when he was working in mainstream media earlier, people were laughing on him because he was trying to write on these things. But today we see the number of people coming to write on. Today somebody told, there's a two buzzwords, sir, you mentioned, climate and AI. So this is mainstream now. Who is going to tell you, don't write about this? Climate change is affecting farmers. Climate change is affecting people who are gig workers. It's not climate story, it's a gig worker story, just change the lens. I don't think, it's mainstreaming now, it's coming together. So this gap will be highlighted only by those who want to fool us, and we will stand our ground. So that is the different argument I like to see. Like, I go to these threads and try to understand what people are arguing. So we know how social media functions. It does not function, like it's not conduct itself the way we are conducting now. They are not serious. They want to defeat the person who has written because of the political alignment. So that is not the thing we are discussing, and that will keep happening. So even in a personal life, in a family, like if you want to get something out of fridge, it is not as smooth. I am thinking about a story, and my kid has thrown something, and I get disturbed, I get irritated. So this is simple life. Here we are talking about a big issue. Such challenges will come, and that's part and parcel of life.
Yeah, I would just like to add, as someone who writes a lot on labor rights and climate as well, I don't think they're separate issues. I mean, I think anyone who's talking about it just not understanding it clearly, because if you look at heat, for example, now we'll see so much productivity loss happens. Companies also lose money. And what happens when companies lose money? They fire people, right? And so it's not like we are living in different worlds. It's all part of the same world. And as journalists, it's up to us to make these linkages as well.
Hello, sir. My name is Somen. And as we all discuss about ESG, and it is all the claims, not the proof. So I would like to discuss about giving a company specific example, um, how the investors how investors verify those proof, because a Coal India subsidy just got listed in the very early stages of this year, and it was one of the major listings, and its share prices also like issued at a 96% premium. So that company is not able to relocate its locals for the last 2 decades, and also there was a major incident which was reported by all the news agencies and all on December, and the same after 1 month they got listed. So how the investors verify, or their sentiment is more driven towards the profitability only, because India is the second largest consumer and producer of coal. So they will make profit in a short term. That is quite a known fact. So
Yeah, I think first I'll request you to don't quote me like that 100% is wrong. I did not say that. What I'm saying, there is a chance of, it's not wrong that way. I'm not saying that 100% is greenwashing. There is a 100% chance of greenwashing. There is a 0% chance of greenwashing as well. And as of now, like what you mentioned about the coal company and the displacement. So I told you, it's just the share market is here for decades, and ESG is a new phenomenon. It is when governments are trying to devise a tool to ensure finance get mobilized. This is one among several tools. And it only does, this is not the one factor which decides the investment and how companies are listed, what is the premium. There are a number of other factors, more important factors, which are old and established. These are the evolving thing, but what we feel in future, this is going to be a big thing, because importance of climate change will increase. There is no way we are going to see less erratic weather. So it will evolve, and similarly, people will be more affected and they will get more aware, and then they might consider ESG. That is the theory. So going forward, I think it will play more bigger role. As of now, ESG is a very, so it's playing very short-term or very small role in the overall investment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? I think that's about it. Thank you, sir, so much. This was a very insightful session, and I'm glad we could end this on this note. Thank you, everyone, for all the attention.